Welcome to TrailManners, the podcast so dedicated to mountain trails and running that they broadcast out of a 78 Volkswagen bus in the mountains. Who does that? Eric and Joel are your hosts and will bring you the trail life as you may have not heard it before. You hear about everything from gear reviews, nutrition to keep you upright and moving forward, and they'll even bring guests into the bus for conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. It's time for some running adventures on a higher elevation. The old 78 Volkswagen bus is fired up and headed to the mountains. Here are your hosts for TrailManners, proudly representing the 801 with their passion and love for the trails, Eric Manning and Joel Hatch.
Welcome to the TrailManners podcast, episode number 64. Today, we're talking with Jared Campbell about an upcoming event he has going on, RUFA, which is Running Up for Air. So make sure you listen and see what you can do to support the cause. If it's your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The TrailManners podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at TrailManners. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, welcome back to another episode of the TrailManners podcast, number 64. And we have a pretty solid guest.
Oh, I like that. Nice
like
comeback on that.
I usually say we got a special guest.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say that anymore.
So not anymore. So today we made the trek down to Salt Lake City.
Yep.
In the
rain.
In the Seattle rain.
Yeah.
It feels like it's 45 degrees.
Right.
Pouring rain. We're supposed to get 30 inches of snow. That did not happen.
Definitely not below 9,000 feet.
Yeah, for sure. Today we have got Mr. Jared Campbell. Jared, thank you so much for taking the time to, out of your busy day, to sit down and talk to us.
Absolutely. Very happy to be here, guys. Thanks a lot.
So, we definitely have some things we want to talk about, but let's do a quick little introduction for those that may not know Jared.
Right.
Okay? I mean, a lot of us know him pretty well, things he's done.
Right.
So, Jared, a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background, and then we can jump into some goodies.
Well, we're here in Salt Lake City, where I'm born and raised, product of this place, and I can't seem to pry myself away from it. So, I grew up here, went all through my schooling here, up through college as well. Spent a good chunk of my life climbing, rock climbing, kind of, living in Salt Lake City is about one of the best places on earth for it. And I guess spent 15 years doing that, both within the country and traveling a lot abroad too. And that, I guess in my early 20s, kind of transitioned to running. I had a mentor, a professor that I worked for actually, who kind of talked me into trying out a 100-miler, and it was, like a lot of people, just got to do it once, prove to yourself you can do it, and then get back to the other things. And here I am, I guess 15 years later, with it being a pretty big part of my life.
Right.
So
Done more than one so far.
Done a couple, one or two.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the big ones you've done, I mean, obviously is Barkley. I mean, we could start there. You have a pretty deep connection, and you always will, with Barkley, whether you want it or not. But tell us a little bit, how did you first get introduced to that, and then how did that get in your blood to where you've accomplished what you've accomplished?
I knew about Barkley pretty early on. Those who've stumbled across Matt Mahoney's website, it's kind of this classic old schools, 90s HTML website. But for whatever reason, I was kind of drawn to the things that he would put on there, like Nolan's 14 and Barkley. And a lot of the people I really looked up to when I was first getting into the sport were people drawn to those events, along with, Hard Rock. Hard Rock's, obviously a tougher but much more mainstream event. And those people seemed to eventually gravitate towards things like Nolan's and like Barkley. People like Blake Wood and Jim Nelson, who's a Salt Lake hero who's no longer with us.
Right.
But, those people, I just, for whatever reason, kind of gravitated to the stories they had written up about those events. So I knew about the Barkley, for a dozen years really before I entertained the idea of doing it. In fact, more than anything, it was kind of a joke between me and my friends. One of my good friends, Ryan McDermott, we always had this joke, like, which would you rather do? Would it be Badwater or would it be Barkley? And
there's no good answer there.
Well, I don't know why it took me a while to realize, like, my answer to that was absolutely Barkley.
Yeah.
I'm not a road guy and I don't like heat,
Oh,
so
I'm with you on that one.
kind of a no-brainer there. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, he said, that we actually had this ongoing sort of, bet about it. And he said, well, the day you do Barkley, I'll follow up and do Badwater just to sort of balance it out. But he's completely, falling short on his end of the deal there.
Call him out.
Call him out right here.
Yeah, totally. Ryan, get on it. At this point, he's got a lot of catching up to do.
Oh, absolutely.
But so I knew about it for a long time. It wasn't until maybe 2011 that I really started thinking about doing it. I had spoken with Blake Wood, and I met Ed Furtaw, who's kind of a key figure in the Barkley history. Really cool guy. I met him out at Hard Rock in 2010, actually. And for whatever reason, I think that kind of planted the seed in my mind. And 2011, I had this, pretty epic sort of home building project, I remember. And, much of my free time was spent, designing and building our home now. And at the end of that, we moved in December, early December, after a whole summer of trying to have a full-time job and, build a house on the side. And I was just like exhausted, and I just didn't feel like myself. I felt out of balance, in terms of work life, balance there. And so I was like, I got to have something. I got to have something to put on the calendar to just catapult me back into, training for a goal. And so that was early December. Thankfully, I was well connected enough to people who had done Barkley, which is kind of key, that I was able to figure out how to get in.
Right.
And did get in, so I had about 4 months or so to get ready for it. And for me, that was awesome, like this really neat and very challenging thing to put on the calendar. So that whole winter for me, the winter of 2011, 2012 timeframe, was really cool to train for that. And during that, as I was out on, all the classic trails right around here, Mount Olympus, Grandeur Peak and whatnot, I kept running into Jim Nelson,
Right.
Nice.
who I had, known over the years in things like Hard Rock. And I said, Jim, I got into Barkley. And he, all of a sudden it changed our relationship, and he just really wanted to help me out, which was quite cool. He said, come over to my house. He lives in, downtown Salt Lake, and he said, come over to my house and I'll, take you under my wing and show you pictures and help you understand the event, because, I guess there's a lot more information now than there was 5-6 years ago.
Right.
5-6 years ago, it was very mysterious still.
Yeah.
You only had a couple, many very, very long, but mostly just text recounts of how the event went for people, and then a few pictures here and there. At this point, there's like movies on it.
Yeah, there's
obviously.
everything.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so, I knew of it for a long time, kind of got excited about it in 2011 and figured out how to get in. Jim helped take me under his wing, and I went out there and had a really neat experience, and then ended up, going back multiple times since then. So.
Well, it's interesting because now you're kind of that. It's like come full circle for you. So
Right.
you're the guy that you've taken people under your
Right.
wing to help them with Barkley.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting, because we've had Jen Eaton on the show,
Right.
and she mentioned how instrumental you were for her. Trying to tell her this is what you kind of do this and prepare for this, and because it is mysterious. And like you said, there's a lot more information now,
Right.
and I can imagine, because that goes with anything, than there ever was. So
Yeah.
and so, finishes. How many finishes we got at Barkley?
3
Three.
at this point. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. And on top of that, there's Hard Rock,
Right.
Wasatch.
Oh, when we talked about coming down and interviewing him, I started thinking, it's like, he's done Wasatch, and he's gone and done Lodaja too.
No, actually.
You haven't?
I remember.
So I had the goal of doing the Wasatch. I still do.
Thought you did that.
Yeah. 2 different years I've actually tried to do it, but I've
Right.
actually never started on the bike.
And is that
Interestingly.
just because you just had better thoughts at that point? You're like, no, that's just stupid. I better not do that.
Well, it's so fascinating. I love the objective, actually.
Right.
Because logistically it's super challenging,
Yeah.
in the sense that, Wasatch starts at
Yeah.
on a Friday
let's,
at 5 a.m.
Let's back up and kind of explain
Yeah,
what this
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Go ahead. I'll let you explain what this is.
It's really simple to explain. It's doing the Wasatch 100 followed by the Lodaja, which is a race from Logan to Jackson.
On the bike.
On the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And how far is that on the bike?
it's 200-ish miles,
Oh,
200
yeah.
plus miles. Yeah.
So you start on a Friday morning for the Wasatch 100 trail race, which is not an easy race.
And you
Even it's
do
100.
that under,
You have to do it under a certain amount of time.
Yeah. It's like got to be around 22 hours or faster.
which is pretty fast.
Yeah,
for
which is
Wasatch.
fast anyway. And then you
Right.
jump in your car from Heber,
Right.
and drive to Logan
as fast as you can.
as fast as someone will drive you there because
Right.
you're not driving.
No, hopefully not.
Right.
And so that takes an hour.
Ish. Probably 2 hours at least.
Yeah, an hour and a half maybe.
That's just the drive. And then
Right.
you got to and you just finished a 100-mile race. So then you got to get up and geared up, psyched up, and jump on a bike, pedal. And
this is the solo division. This isn't like the the relay, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, I road bike just enough to, usually I'm on a bike when I'm injured from running actually, but I do really love to bike. I'm not one of these guys who goes out in big groups, and I'm not a expert biker by any means. So most of my biking is by myself.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, like putting that all together timeline-wise, to finish the Wasatch as fast as you need to logistically be able to get to the start line for Lodija is tricky. And it puts this very interesting sort of psychological twist on Wasatch, right? Where, you're running and it's like, okay, I got to finish in, I got to be reserved, but at the same time finish in 22-ish hours. And it's hard to figure out that combo.
Right.
Yeah.
You finish in 22 hours, that's like top 5.
That's
or it
tough.
used to be. I mean, now that's like top 10.
It depends, on the year and who's there. But it's fast.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so 2 years I actually put in and got into Lodija, and started Wasatch, ran it in 21 and change or something. But I had a really terrible finish of it. And I really think it's because of sort of what weighs on your mind, knowing that you have the bike ride, actually. So the last 20 or something miles was terrible, one of those horrible, just
mentally draining.
Yeah, and just I was a mess, throwing up everywhere. Across the finish line, I'm like, I feel horrible. But I, showered, jumped in the car. My wife drove me up to Logan, and I'm trying to shift gears in my mind into biking mode, right? And I just it was not the right circumstances. It's funny because the next year I did not sign up for Lodija, and had a great Wasatch in the sense that I felt pretty awesome all the way to the end. Because I was like, dang it, the years that I have not been in Lodija, I've
good Wasatch.
Yeah, I've had good Wasatch. So I think I kind of like that game, which I have not perfected yet. I will go back and try this again soon. But I'm how do you piece that together to have the right mindset to not be exhausting mentally while you're running Wasatch, and then also finish fast enough and get up to Logan and jump on the bike.
Well, it seems, just from the outside looking in, it seems like, I have these great Wasatch races when I finish, I'm done. That's what it sounds like to me. As opposed to when I finish a 100-mile race, then I got to high-five somebody, throw on some spandex, and jump on a bike for, a day or however long it takes.
Yeah.
So I could see where that might be a mind game for sure.
Yeah.
Just 100 miles, that's tough. Period. I don't care if it's a flat race, tough course, it's 100 miles.
Right.
But now let's throw a twist. Let's say, okay, now you got to do it in sub 22, which is not something everybody or a very high percentage can even do that.
Right.
Now jump on a bike. So, yeah.
It's still uncharted territory.
Well, you got to, and what do you call that one again? I forgot.
Wasatija, Wasatoja, depends how you want to pronounce it.
That's true. Yeah.
It's got a nice ring to it.
It does. It really
now,
does.
has anybody done this yet that
No.
you know of? Oh.
No. Yeah, it needs to be done. I'll tell you what, it's really cool on Thursday when you're going to Sugar House Park where the check-in for Wasatch is. Check-in for Wasatch, you do the whole weigh-in and all that thing. And actually, no, I think you check in for Lodija first, and it's up in somewhere in Ogden, right?
Yeah.
Show up to the line and go through the little line, get all my, swag and whatnot, get the sticker, the tattoo on your leg that says you're a Lodija biker, and then race down to Sugar House Park and check in for the Wasatch. It's such a trip, but kind of cool.
Okay, so now you folks know what type of person we're dealing with here,
right?
In Jared.
If you don't know, for sure.
Not only is he a Hard Rock veteran, a Barkley veteran, but he's got this other crazy thing he's trying to do too.
To be the first at, and that's just. And again, this is just a lot of you already know Jared, but this is like a tip of the iceberg with the accomplishments. I mean, me and Joel, just on the way down. I mean, when talking to you, you've done RDing for quite a bit, and
started the Pocatello 50.
Yep. And we were part of that the first year, and then you've handed that off. But I mean, your I'll say race or run resume is pages long.
Right. It's solid.
Yeah.
And you're climbing and
skiing. Yeah. You're outdoor
backcountry travel in Zion, which I've always admired.
Thank you.
Those things are cool. I loved reading those, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So that's that's a good introduction, right?
I think. Well, so what do you do for work, real quick? Let's round it out.
Engineer.
Okay.
So, yep, my day job is living the life of a mechanical engineer.
Right on.
Yep.
Okay.
So he's a smart guy.
Yeah. You know,
We've
a lot
talked
of
to a
smart
lot of
people.
smart
A
guys
lot
on the
of
show.
well, smart people are drawn to this. And we've
Yeah.
talked about this. I think when we were talking with Dom Layfield about this, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of ultra runners are people that have at least bachelor's degrees, if not masters.
Yeah, and they just have that switch. We've talked to a lot on the show. We've had Jim Skaggs. He's an engineer,
Yeah.
right? And he's kind of the same way. Are you a spreadsheet guy too?
Oh, boy. Yeah.
He smiled big.
Yeah, you better not talk to my wife.
Grocery list is in
He
spreadsheets.
sat right up
He did
once
too.
you said spreadsheet. That was awesome.
You got my attention now. I'm here.
All right,
I'm
we're
with you.
locked and loaded now. And this is, you know, I mean, a big segment. I mean, a lot of the stories that we could go on with Barkley and Hard Rock and, you know, your backcountry stuff, everything you've done. I mean, we could have show after show after show. But, you know, one of the reasons, one of the many reasons we wanted to get you on the show, too, is talk about what you've done the last 4 years for this area.
Right.
You know, a lot of people aren't aware of it, and it's something that just needs to be addressed in so many levels, and hopefully we can help on that. But it's called RUFA, right?
And what's that stand for?
Running Up for Air, right?
Right.
You got it.
So we're going to kind of, again, you do a great job. We're going to kind of let you take away, you know, kind of go with what RUFA is, and we'll kind of dissect it as we get into it. But, you know, kind of how did this start? Why did it start? And where are we at today?
Yeah. Well, if you look at the timeline, the first year that we did it was 2012, actually, which is the first year I went out to Barkley.
Okay.
And so that's not really just a coincidence. I was training a lot for Barkley in the middle of the winter, right, because the race is in early April. And you inevitably are going. For me, it's a lot of Olympus, Mount Olympus and west side of Grandeur, two peaks I have done more times than I care to admit. But, you know, a lot of time out there on your own, and, you know, a lot of lonely time too, and a lot of like feeling of maybe not selfishness per se, but just like this whole thing that I'm doing, all this training is all about. It's all about preparation for some personal thing, for me to go out to Barkley, right? And it's like, at one point it just hit me, like, is there some way to take all of this time and energy that I'm investing into training here and turn it into something constructive for, like, you know, the greater society, right?
Right.
Not just Jared getting ready for Barkley. And this was me kind of thinking it through in, you know, November, let's say, November, December. And I got on the phone with, okay, so one thing led to another on one of the laps, let's say, and I was like, well, I've done the race director thing before. You know,
Right.
like I know how to do that. I don't know if I could pull off a permit for this, but maybe I could come up with a way to raise some funding, you
Right.
know, for something good, right? And I had this idea. Again, I had a really short fuse, and I didn't have a permit, so it's like maybe I could come up with a way to say that I'm going to go do something crazy, like 10 laps on the west side of Grandeur at the time, and I could have people sort of dare me, you know, like I'll throw in $5 for every lap that you do, Jared,
Right.
or $10 or something like that, because I don't believe it, you know. And my whole thing early on was, let me say I'm going to do 10, and those who don't believe me will, you know, financially dare me to do 10, right?
Right.
Because at the time, 10 laps on the west side of Grandeur sounded pretty crazy.
So how many feet of elevation is per lap?
It's like 3,300 feet
Oh,
per
okay.
lap.
And how
So-
far is it from the bottom to the top?
It's like 2.2 miles
Oh, my
up, so it's,
goodness.
you know,
So
it's a good steep hill.
Yeah, that's way up. That's like
good.
straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I came down after it hit me that I could raise maybe a few dollars this way, and I talked to a good friend of mine, probably one of the most like well-intentioned and well-educated people I've ever known, and I said, hey, you know, you're really well-connected in the nonprofit side of things. He has an MD and a PhD, and so, like, you know, on paper he's super brilliant, and he's just this really interesting guy, but he's also much more than that. He's very humanitarian focused. And I said, what group in Salt Lake City, what nonprofit group would benefit the most from a few dollars? So he thought about it for a second or two and quickly came back and said, Breathe Utah. You got to go look into Breathe Utah. It's this amazing group, amazing collection of people who put their heart and soul into really fighting, you know, from an advocacy standpoint, from an education outreach standpoint for air quality. And I went, yeah, I mean, that's the group. So I immediately got in contact with their executive director at the time and I said, hey, can we meet, you know, for coffee and go talk about something? I got an idea. And she was like, okay. And I said, I want to raise money for you. And I want it to be essentially no work for you.
Right.
You know, and she was just like, what? I mean, like, people don't do this, you know?
Right.
And I said, I don't want it to be any work for Breathe Utah, but I had this idea. I told her a little bit about, maybe my past and race director stuff that I'd done at Pocatello, and she's like, great, we're all in. I mean, how would they say no to that? And so we kind of pulled it together. I put the some word out there on my blog, I think, and said, here's what I'm going to do. Challenge me. Do like this challenge round. If I can get to 10 laps, pledge $5 or $10 or whatever per lap. And it was awesome, actually. And then I also said I had to make it, I hate to say this, but I had to make it about me because I didn't have a permit. So I couldn't call it a race. I couldn't say, we're going to start at this time and all compete to do numbers of laps, because that's a race in the eyes of the Forest Service and the county. And so I said, here's what I'm doing. I can't stop you from coming to join me. So if you want to come out, do it. I'm going to start it on this day at 6 a.m. And we had so put the word out there. And like 2 days before the Saturday we were going to start, it dumped like a couple feet.
Nice.
And I had the folks at Breathe Utah saying, like, you don't have to do this. We can delay it a week or two. And I'm like, no, we're doing it. Right. And it was really cool. So we had maybe like 10 to 12 folks show up in the morning. And we all just started marching up the west side, right? And you're post-holing up to knee or even deeper than knee, all the way to the top. The first lap was really hard that year. And so it was kind of like breaking trail on skis. We were taking turns,
Right.
not like kicking steps kind of, right? And it's so neat doing multiple laps. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this because for a long time I was very opposed to events that involved laps on things. And here I am doing a lot of laps. Yeah. But the first lap is super hard because you're breaking trail, and every lap it sort of gets broken in, and eventually it's like this little trough that you can both get up fairly effectively, but also down really fast too. That's what I love about doing west side of Grandeur in the wintertime. It's really fun coming down. At any rate, so that was 2012, and it went off really well. I think we had quite a few people come out for it. At the time I was counting like total number, like collective number of summits for the people that participated, and it was maybe somewhere around 100 summits, let's say, which was really cool.
What was that first year where it was kind of just put together the way you did it? What did you raise? Do you remember?
Maybe $5,000 or $6,000.
Wow,
something like that.
That's great.
That's a lot more than I thought. Just the conversations. That was the first year.
Yeah.
And then after you completed that, did you think, hey, that was?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, and I mean, people really ate it up. They're like, this would be a neat event. Mm-hmm. Like you've got to do this, and I truly loved it. I mean, it was much more exciting than I thought it would be, doing repetitive laps on the west side of that peak. But it's so cool to start in the morning when it's dark and then go through the day. And we had crazy weather that day, and then into the night and through the night. It was pretty lonely during the night because I think it was just me and all the people who said they were going to join me. Very few were there. I think Eric Storheim might have come out during the night. But it was an awesome event, and I was like, I really want to do this again. And I came out of that, connecting with the Forest Service, trying to make it happen. That ended up being the next 3 or 4 years for me, was to try to work with the county, actually, who they have it's county land for halfway up the west side of Grandeur, and then it turns into Forest Service.
Right.
And I worked at that for multiple years, and it just wasn't going to happen. Just given the fact that it's not an official trail in there, it's not a system trail, and the Forest Service is pretty rigid on that rule of must be system trail. And so I got rather discouraged. Really wanted to keep doing the event, which we did do, but it was always this underground, non-official event. I mean, it had to be, and they were very clear about that, how we conducted it. If I made it look like a race at all, if I ever treated it like a race, like I could have, gotten in trouble for it. So that was running up for air for 2012, 13, 14, and 15.
So you did this for people to know how the first year you did it for how long?
Well, the goal, it was always a 24-hour thing.
Okay.
So it's the most number of laps you could fit in 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And every year I've done that, gone for, whether it was 22 or 23 hours, 23 and change, something like that,
And so every year, did your laps increase?
I think I did. So this was on the west side, 10 laps the first year and then 12 laps the next year. And then I think I did 12 laps again the next year. So 10, 12, 12. And then I didn't run it myself in 2015, but others did.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
And as the years gone by, too, has the donation or the money raised increased?
Not really,
It's
honestly.
been kind of hovering about 5,000-6,000
Yeah.
every year.
Only because it's not an organized event, we haven't really been able to publicize it.
It's like donation based.
And so, yeah, it's like the people that think it's interesting and were willing to make some donation seem to be there and sort of with me for all those years. But I wasn't ever able to grow it, you know?
So where are we at now?
Okay, so last year, I should say early 2016, I really didn't think it was going to happen. I was working with the Forest Service, and we had entertained this idea of shifting the venue to be on the Church Fork side of Grandeur Peak, which is in Mill Creek Canyon, and it is a system trail.
Right.
I love Church Fork. It's a great trail, but it's just not the west side, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that just gnarly, steep, rocky mess. But the reality is it's a far better trail. And so, you know, we were kicking around the idea of moving the event over into Church Fork, where we'd sort of have an aid station, go to the summit, and then descend the west side.
Oh, wow.
And in my mind, ideally, I'd go all the way to the bottom and then come back up. But we sort of hit this barrier where if as long as people were on top of snow, they treated it like a winter permit rather than a trail event. And almost like a ski race or a snowmobile thing, which snowmobiling races get permits, special use winter permits. And so I had this epiphany at the end of 2015, like I'm just characterizing this wrong. I'm calling it a trail race, but the reality is it's a lot more like a special use winter race.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I was like, oh, wow, maybe I just need to call this like a snowshoe race or a whatever means you like to get to the top race, you know?
Right.
And it's on snow. It's almost always been on snow, except maybe the bottom third.
Right.
You know, usually melts out depending on the conditions. So we had this arrangement where we would start at Church Fork, go to the summit, descend down until the snow stopped, till we're on dirt, and that would be by requirement a turnaround point.
Okay.
And then crazily, we had this really warm weather right before the 2016 event, and essentially you were on dirt maybe 500 vertical feet from the summit. So we just changed it and we said it's going to be all in Church Fork, and that's what it was for 2016, and it ended up being really cool.
Okay.
And so that was last year. Did you, or I guess this year, did you have a race? Was that more of a race situation, entry fee type thing? Is that how you raised money that time?
So it was the first time we ever had an entry fee.
Okay.
Now, I got a permit 2 weeks before, and you can imagine it's hard to pull off any type of organized anything in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But magically we did. So we did charge a little entry fee, $35, I think, which essentially just covered the insurance and food that we bought. And I didn't feel good charging any more than that to people because we didn't have much infrastructure, you know. There was certainly no swag, no T-shirt, no buckle, no nothing, you know. So I charged just the bare minimum so we could cover our expenses to put it on. And then my hope was Breathe Utah would benefit from this through people donated directly to Breathe. So,
well, the other thing it's done too, I mean, we're talking about the financial stuff, but a lot of it too is just the recognition, right?
Advocacy.
The advocacy
for
of what's
issue.
going on. Because here in Utah, if you're not familiar, and you know, a lot of people obviously aren't, but we've got an air problem in the wintertime.
Got a huge air problem.
So we always have the Outdoor Retailers show in the winter. It's January, and people come to town and they just are.
They're like, what the heck's
yeah,
going on?
they can't believe it.
Yeah.
They'll see posting photos. They're talking about it. They got masks on. It's just that bad of a problem, and a lot of people outside the community don't see it. So this, besides the money, it's just more of an awareness thing too,
Right.
which you've definitely seen some things go on. So now we're gearing up, as we were talking about, for 2017.
2017.
So RUFA 2017 is on Ultra Sign Up.
It is.
Right?
That's
is.
exciting.
So, and it's open for registration.
just opened a couple days ago, yeah.
Okay, and so tell people what to expect if they want to do this and why they should do this.
If they want to do it, I think it's really, a unique event in the trail running, if you want to call it, or ultra running scene. Most people try to put their race, back when I ran Pocatello, it was like, what's the right date for the best conditions for people, right?
Right.
It was that May, was it June? It's hard to say, right, in the Rockies.
Yeah.
But we were trying to have the most pleasant weather possible was really our objective. And most race directors, with the exception of outliers like Badwater and things like this, right?
Yeah.
But I think RUFA is interesting because it's intentionally meant to be a winter endurance foot race.
Right.
And I don't know that many of those. In fact, I don't know any.
Not many that I'm aware
So
of.
I can't think of any.
Yeah.
So we actually pulled it earlier in the year. It's February 11th this year. So it's 2 weeks earlier than it was in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
And that's so that we really kind of guarantee that winter, packed snow experience.
Just the nar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Because it could be ugly.
It could be totally ugly. And if it is, we're still going to have it. We're still going to hold it.
3 feet of snow.
That's part of the allure.
But the cool thing about
That'd
it,
be so cool.
I mean, and I love this component of it. When you get like a train of people, let's say 40, 50, 60 people, all marching up a trail, it's going to get packed down.
It packs out after the first pass.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So while the first lap or 2 or 3 may be gnarly and you may be pole stolen and you may be really kind of frustrated, it's cool to see how as you slow down and get more exhausted, it's quite often people's lap times don't necessarily slow down a lot because the trail gets better and better.
Yeah.
And that's certainly what we found on the west side,
Mm-hmm.
I think I was able to hold the same split on the west side for the first 6 laps, like within a few minutes,
so
maybe.
cool.
And I was getting tired, the trail was getting better, and you're getting
evens out a little bit.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So what was your last year? What kind of, with only 2 weeks to prepare for it and the history of it, what kind of numbers did you have last year?
In terms of
people that showed up to participate?
Boy, I have to look it up. I would say about 80 or so. So
That's good.
it was actually not that. I mean, it was even less than some of the earlier years that we had.
Right.
One of the reasons I think too. Well, the first is that we only had 2 weeks that we put the word out there.
Yeah.
The other was 24 hours. 24-hour event is fairly daunting to a lot of people, even when they're in their peak fitness, but especially in February, they're like, "What are you doing?"
Well, the event itself, it's daunting. It's not like you go. It's not a race. You're not running, right? You're hiking and you're earning every step. Right?
So what's the elevation gain out of Church Fork?
So it's about 2,600 feet.
And then what's the mileage for Church Fork?
6 miles round trip, 5.9 or something.
So
like that round trip.
3-ish.
3 to the top.
Yeah, just under 3 to the top, and 2,600 feet up.
Ow.
So, I mean, it's much. I mean, it's actually. I think Church Fork side is very runnable, relative to the west side for sure, right? So,
Punk.
I mean, the west side is like you're hiking
Straight
the
up
west
marching,
side,
right?
But Church Fork's great because there are a number of sections that folks will be able to run sections.
And is that what you're going to do this year? You're going to go back to the Church Fork side and have people.
Yeah.
So is it an out back or is it a loop?
It'll be an out and back, yep, up to the summit. We'll have a little aid station on top. We had a little tent with like two poor people shivering up there.
I remember seeing
just to
pictures
verify
about
that
that
people
was
would come
awesome.
up there. But we plan to have better infrastructure up this year and really have fun with that.
Okay.
It was tricky to find volunteers to want to go, carry
Joel
stuff
was
up
talking
there.
about that on the way down here.
Hush up.
Sit on top.
I think Luke Nelson, I was talking to him earlier today. He goes, "So you're going to go to the RUFA this year?" I'm like, "I guess I do now."
You got to do it.
I guess I got to do it now.
Well, back to the daunting 24-hour nature of it. This 2017, we've also added a 12-hour and a 6-hour approach to it. Because I think what I found, too, was there are a number of people who shot me emails that were like, it sort of opened my eyes to like a component of trail running community that like the real competitive side where they didn't want to sign up for a 24-hour event, come and do 2 or 3 or 4 laps and then be compared to someone who might have gone for 24 hours, which was interesting for me to kind of see that, but it makes sense. So I want it to become a more competitive, like a real race, which would be cool. And so I think adding a 12-hour component or event and a 6-hour event will inspire the people who don't want to go slog for 24 hours. They can come and give serious effort for 6 hours and throw down. I think some interesting sort of statistics will come out of this. Like the most number of laps in 6 hours.
So what do you think will happen in 6 hours?
What do you think would
in terms
be?
of number? Of
Yeah,
laps?
no, I mean, how what's the most laps you think a male or a female can get in 6 hours in ideal conditions?
On Church Fork.
Trails packed out with snow.
Yeah. I mean, Church Fork is harder to get vertical than the west side because it's longer, So, like, for reference, the earlier years I was doing 12 laps on the west side, which is 40,000 feet. Church Fork, I mean, this year was a little different, and I was, like, trying to coordinate the event. So, like, when I'd come back from laps, I'm, like, trying to help out with the aid station and then turn around and go back out. So, but I do think it'd be hard to get the same. Well, I know it would be much harder to get the same the same amount of vertical on the Church Fork side. Let's see what could happen there.
Yeah, in 6 hours.
6 hours. What would you say it's a race like you're
Yeah.
talking about? What would the winner be?
We
in
get
your,
like a fast, 1 or 2 fast mountain guys.
yeah.
I mean,
and
you
girls
know,
there.
like a Luke. I mean,
Yeah.
Luke's super impressive, and I forget how many laps he did and how long he went. But I bet if he came down and focused on the 6 hour, I mean, he could probably do it like 5 or 6 times, maybe 5 times.
All right, there you go, Luke.
Man,
Let's see,
that's
5 times maybe.
5 times.
Yeah, in 6 hours.
Dang.
That'd be really hard, actually. But Luke's remarkable.
He's really fit. He's going to be in Iceland then, right? And he's going to come back, and he'll be fit.
he'll be ready to roll.
He'll be ready to roll because he's going to
Yeah.
be doing all the skimo stuff over there.
So we're
Yeah.
saying 5 on fit for 6 hours. So
I mean, someone fast up is doing an ascent in 40 minutes and down in 20, so an hour for a fast
my
lap.
gosh. That's
You
crazy.
know?
So what about a couple fat guys like us?
he looked right at me
like
again.
3?
I don't like that.
2?
A lot lot of people did 2 and 3 laps, like
2?
in the sub 6 hour range.
All right.
Yeah.
Joel's throwing down.
So-
He's ready.
Well, no,
do it,
I
Joel.
think
Come
that,
on.
you know, if he had like a buckle, because I'm a buckle whore, I might be into the 24.
Oh man, not me. We've done some stuff down or
my
up
gosh.
north.
Malins.
Malins.
Like
we do 6 hours of Malins,
Malins.
and we've done 12 hours of Malins.
Yeah.
And Malins, Joel, give a quick description.
That's 2 miles up and 2,000 feet of climbing,
and it's,
basically.
it's runnable down for
It's-
sure.
and part of
some
it's
people
runnable up,
Yeah, up
part
as
of it.
well. So we've had some experience with it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll get like 3 trips in 6 hours.
Yeah. 4's good.
4 is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 is pretty average.
So a 12 hour. So 6 hour, we're thinking maybe 5.
Oh, he's got all his data
so
right
I
here.
got my spreadsheet up
Oh my
here in front
gosh,
of
I
me.
knew that was
he
gonna
is
happen.
Such a spreadsheet nerd.
So
this is awesome.
We had somebody do 4 laps in 6 hours and 11 minutes last
Holy
year.
cow.
So I think 5's possible.
Okay.
Yeah,
about
let's
on-
just throw it out there.
All
5's
right.
the challenge.
What
So
about
I
that?
think that becomes very interesting now to a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Who might not want to come and just, grovel for 24 hours,
Right.
which is,
But you're
my usual modus operandi there.
You'll be
so
groveling with a lot of familiar people, though.
I know,
And
that's
that
the
makes
fun
it
part.
fun, right?
Yeah.
Because especially if you're going up and down, so you're going to be
Yeah.
seeing these people the whole
Right.
time.
High-fiving them, slapping them on the behind.
Yeah, pushing them.
okay, and
Pushing
then,
them.
If they
Be
get too close
careful
to your
where
time.
that thumb gets, though, on the way up.
And so then we have a 12-hour event. would
yeah,
be
there's
the
a
next
12-hour event. We had, let's see, we had someone do 6 laps in 9 hours and change. So another 1 or 2 on top of that is possible, maybe.
Wow.
8 laps in
8
12
laps
hours.
in 12 hours.
8 or 9. Let's see.
And then 24
4.
would
You
be...
did 24 last year, right?
Yeah,
Kind
so
of.
let's see. I did 13 laps in 23 hours.
Right.
And I bet, if someone were focused on it, they could do 15 or so.
Oh, my gosh. That would hurt.
That would be...
Your legs would hate you for a
That
couple
would be
days.
tough. So 15, you think 15, right?
Yeah.
And that's how many...
Let's throw it out
What's
there.
the elevation on that? This
Would you
up?
say 3,000?
3,000 or
It's-
2?
It's 2,600 up, roughly.
Okay.
So.
So I'm not like a
We're doing math,
mathematician.
but we're
Yeah.
closing in on like 38,000.
It's 39,000.
Oh,
So,
I said 38. That's
You were
pretty
close.
good.
That
but
was
I
really good.
mean, I do think it's possible because I was doing 40,000 on the west side in 23 hours. So,
Right.
But
if,
that's what
if you're a little, you're going to cover more distance to get that
Right.
on church work. But it's possible. Let's throw that out as the challenge. So, 15 laps for the 24 hour. That's what we got to get to collectively as a community.
See, and that's why we
may
wanted to
take
do
a
the
year or
quick
two to get
intro.
there.
That's why we wanted to do the intro so people
Right.
knew who we were talking to. We're
Yeah.
talking Barkley,
Yep.
Hard Rock,
Yep.
all these crazy things that you've done. So
Mhm.
that's why we wanted that background.
I know.
So people listening like, oh, so if he says 5, then I'm thinking 4.
3.
Or 3,
right? Let's-
right?
Okay, 3 for us average guys.
So it's going to be on February 11th.
Yep.
You got a 6 hour, a 12 hour, a 24 hour, and it's all for a good cause,
It is.
right? So a couple things. I mean, we'll still talk about it, but you can go to runningupforair.com.
Okay.
This is the website.
Right on.
Or just head over to Ultra Sign Up
Yep.
and Running Up for Air, and there's information, and registration is open.
Yeah.
And seriously, it's what an awesome event. So this year, I mean, have you thought about numbers, what you'd like to see out this year?
For people?
Yeah,
Yeah,
number of
So-
participants that register.
I mean, we're capped at 120.
okay.
So
Is there a
I'd
lottery?
love to see us get to
Is
that.
there a lottery?
No
Is there a
lottery.
wait list?
There's no wait list. I don't. I'd love to see us fill up.
Yeah.
Which I think would
Well,
be
let's
really
do
cool.
it. Let's
Let's
fill
throw
this
that
up.
challenge out.
I think there's enough people between, Logan and St. George. Now, I know those St. George folks don't like coming up here in the wintertime, but
It's a challenge.
come on up.
Get
Come on
Turtle
up.
and Corey Reese and the
Yeah.
gang down there to
Dave Stevenson. They can come up
bring
here
some
and
people
do
up.
6 hours of.
make an event out of it,
Yeah.
right?
I think we should fill this up.
120
fun.
people.
Let's do it.
That would be awesome.
You know, we talked a lot about numbers and times and what's possible speed-wise and whatnot, but the reality is, number one, it's I think for a very good cause, and
Right.
hopefully others agree with that, especially if you live in the valley and enjoy breathing.
Yeah,
Oh,
breathing's really neat.
it's really neat. Is that what you said?
I think breathing's neat.
But I think it's also really fun. So for those who are in the community and have been to an aid station that Rock Horton has ever put on,
Oh, yeah.
Rock
That's
Horton
magic.
and Catherine, two of the fixture people, two heroes of mine here
Yeah.
in Salt Lake. They've graciously volunteered to run the aid station again
Oh,
down at the bottom of
man.
Church Fork. So
Nice.
That's
I
just worth
mean-
coming out by itself.
Yeah.
Especially if they're making pierogies. Oh, man. I'll
Yeah.
just stay there for 24 hours. Here's my money. I'm going to stay right here.
Jill's gonna have the pierogi challenge.
I
not
will.
the uphill
And I will
challenge.
win.
you'll get your money's worth in pierogies.
That's
So
right.
it's going to be super fun. If and when you decide that you're done running for the day and you've got all your summits in, you're welcome to hang out there and just enjoy what should be a really fun gathering party. Bring some warm clothes because it gets really cold at the bottom of Church Fork
So
in
now-
February.
So now I was reading too on the website. There's a shuttle. Is there a shuttle? Right.
Yes.
You have to
Right.
park and then you shuttle to the start.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's absolutely critical. So if you've ever wondered why aren't there more new trail races in the Wasatch, right? And I've wondered that. I've lived here my whole life and
Right.
run the Wasatch, but that's a 37-year-old race that they're grandfathered in.
Right.
They go back so many years, and they have this, historical presence, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you couldn't go put on a new race. That's why there's
Yeah.
things like the Whirl and Millwood and
Right.
Running Up for Air was
Yeah.
an underground thing for a long time because it's so challenging to permit a new race through the Forest Service. And it's not that that the Forest Service is incredibly difficult to work with. What I learned in the process is, especially in the tri-canyons like Mill Creek, Big and Little Cottonwood, the big challenge for them is traffic.
Right.
And they have not seen anybody put forward a plan to conduct a race, a new trail race or bike race that doesn't result in lots of additional traffic into the canyon.
Right.
So one of the things they told me initially was, if you want to go to the Church Fork side, great, but you can only do that if you solve the traffic issue. So
Okay.
figure out how to put on an event with 120 participants, right, running up and down Church Fork Trail, and have no additional cars parked on the side of the road in Mill Creek Canyon. Right? So they had some trust they put in us for 2016, and we arranged what turned out to be a very effective shuttle system that goes from Olympus Hill Shopping Center, which is just outside the mouth of the canyon, then shuttled people up every 30 minutes. And it was so fantastic that when the Forest Service people came up throughout the event to see how things were going, were we actually following the rules, they pull up to the small pull-off on the side of the road at Church Fork, and there were like 2 or 3 cars. And they said we could have 2 or 3 for those of us putting the event on,
Right.
To drive equipment up and
Supplies,
stuff
yeah.
like that. But I think they were pleased with how we conducted it. I think it set a really important precedence, not just for Running Up for Air, but the trail running community and the relationship we have with the Forest Service.
Right.
So it's utterly critical for Running Up for Air that we follow the rules there with the shuttle, but more, bigger than that too, as a community, if we ever want to put a new race in any of those canyons, we got to do it with a shuttle. So
Yeah.
So if people are wanting to participate, you definitely do need to read what I say on the website about the shuttle.
Right.
When you get on the shuttle, you'll get a ticket, and that ticket is something you need when you arrive at the start line and say, I intend to run now. You need to have your ticket that you got on the shuttle. So
That's
it's
awesome.
our way of
Yeah.
ensuring that people follow the rules.
Well, and I think, we had just this last year with the Wasatch 100, there were some changes to
Yeah.
the course and the aid stations because of different reasons, UDOT and
Right.
different things that
Yeah.
they had problems with.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to come back and say, listen, we don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
You need to follow the rules.
Right.
And it's important, as Jared just mentioned, as a trail community and as a community in general, follow the rules, set
Yeah.
a good precedence. So things like Running Up for Air, and there could be other things spawned from this, but it just makes things easier.
It does.
Because Joel and I have put on races, not to
Yep.
the degree of a Wasatch 100. Obviously, you've been a race director. People, I don't know if they realize the hoops and the challenges you're
Yes.
faced with. Because you mentioned
Yeah.
an interesting format is half of it was county and the other half was Forest Service. Me and Joel were putting a race on at one point that was county, city, private land, Forest Service.
Yep.
Just for a small race. So there's a lot of these hurdles that go into a race, not just fees, but the legwork to do it. So it's awesome to see Running Up for Air be permitted, kind of be a non-underground, come check me out. But if you have some shoes and you want to join me, go for it. It's nice to see that, hey, we can blow this thing off, blow the roof off this thing. Let's have a good time, but just stay within what we've established, right?
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, because me and Joel think, that's why we want to come down and talk to you. We talked about it last year leading up to the last race in 2016. What an awesome event it is.
I think so.
And it's always about the great cause, but again, like-minded people.
Yeah, the great community that comes out and supports
you usually know the
like
people
this.
anyway,
Yeah.
right? So it's a lot of fun.
And wait, don't you have pancakes?
Oh, we'll have pancakes.
Isn't that what it's known for though? Is the pancakes?
I think that's after
I mean, Rock's known for having almost anything.
Right.
Well, yeah, actually, when Eric Storheim puts on the fun run, he's known to be flipping pancakes at the bottom. So yeah, we'll have pancakes.
So who's the designated top aid station? Have you found the
No, and it's not going to be one person. It's going to be a number of people cycling through, just because.
Right.
I mean, depending on the conditions too, like it could be serious up there.
Darn.
Yeah.
So we intend to have a much more robust tent than we had last time.
I think we should throw Ty Draney on the top.
Why
we
not?
should actually, yeah.
Because he's pretty accustomed to wearing goggles, having a big beard in that cold weather.
That's
He'd
right.
love it up there.
Oh yeah.
He might come down and run though.
Yeah.
He said he might do a lap. He's recovering from
Yeah,
this.
that's what
his
I'm
wheels
saying.
kind of bummed still.
Yeah, let's throw him up there and high five people.
We're
Yeah,
throwing lots of people under the bus right now.
That's
I
what
love
we,
it.
that's what we do.
I mean, the summit of grandeur in a gnarly storm is probably like a normal day in Afton, Wyoming. So.
True, very
Yeah,
true.
very-
The normal
So he'll
day
fit
in the
right
middle
in.
of
He'll
the
probably
summer.
be in t-shirt and shorts up there, doing
He's
tie.
like, what's up, guys?
Be up there in his little Afton thong. What's going on, fellas?
the Wyoming flag.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is there when you do these? I mean, obviously you have the Running Up for Air and everything else. Do you have ever put forth a goal of what you'd like to raise? Because I mean, that's ultimately what it is for. Running Up. Does Running Up for Air? Do they come out and check it out and everything else too? Is that
You mean Breathe Utah?
Breathe Utah.
Oh, excuse me.
They
yeah, Breathe
have
Utah.
definitely participated every
Okay.
year, and they'll be out there this year as well. What I want to do this year, so we're charging more than we did last year for it, but the intent is not to do all the fundraising through the entry fees. Like that's not my intent. My intent with it was create this wacky event that could be a headliner and get attention, right? Like on the news. People go, "Oh my gosh, what? 24 hours on a peak in February?" I'm going to continue to watch the news, right? And I think we'll actually have that this year. So what I want is for the huge population here in Salt Lake Valley to tune into the news and get exposure to it. So I don't want to grow it I don't want to have 10,000 runners someday.
can't.
I don't want any more than 120, to be honest. It would be unmanageable. But I want people, I want the valley, I want the citizens, non-runners alike, to participate kind of virtually, like through little updates that they'll see through the news. In a best case scenario, I'll have a video streaming footage, that would hopefully get aired on the news throughout the event, which would be really cool.
This would be like our version of the Mountain Marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a helicopter during that race filming it.
Yeah.
That would be way cool.
Well,
And you have commentary during the race from newscasters. That would be so cool.
I mean, I'd really love to get some sort of in situ, like from the event footage that like the rest of the citizens here can actually feel like they're part of it.
Yeah, that'd
the
be
leaders.
awesome.
Yeah.
To be a part of
And
that.
I didn't really say this at the beginning on the what motivated this, but the title of it, the name of it, Running Up for Air, is. I mean, it's perfectly indicative of what happens in the winter during an inversion, right? I mean, I do wear a respirator, like a bona fide full mask respirator when we have red air days, and I'll wear that up to a particular elevation, which is like the top of the cold dense air that's in the bottom of the valley. And you could close your eyes and tell when you're climbing, when you cross through that threshold, and it's a very thin line between the cold air and the warm air, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could close your eyes and feel the temperature rise 10 or 15 degrees and go, oh, I'm above it now.
Right.
And so I'll run with the respirator up, for air. I'm going to literally running up for air, which is where the name came from. And I'll hang my respirator on the side of a bush and then continue to the top, and it's beautiful.
Right.
Like if you're going to find a silver lining in the inversions that we have here, the thermal inversions, it's that in the wintertime when we have inverted conditions, the running up above, say 6,500 feet or 7,000 feet, wherever that line is fantastic.
It is.
Right.
It's warm, it's clear, it's
sunny.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope to be able to get footage from the top of the peak, which I think would be so cool, eventually on some local media news outlet, so people could go, wow, that's what it looks like up there. Because it's beautiful. Like being on top of Grandeur at 9 or 10 at night, which I'm often up there at 9 or 10 at night, is a remarkable scene. Even if it's clear, it's amazing to see the city.
Right.
And then if you're in a nasty inversion, it really opens your eyes to the problem we
Yeah.
have. When you're down in it, you find yourself holding yourself up inside your house, and you don't really understand what's going on. But if you're up above it and looking down, it's like, oh my gosh, this is bad.
And I remember one of the first times that hit me. We in our area, it's a Malins, and I remember one time just getting up on Malins and above that, because you're back in a canyon, so you're not really, nothing's visible. And you come out on the peak, and I remember the first time it hit me is looking out and going, oh my gosh.
Like
it was
big cap.
It was sad.
Yeah.
It was awesome because we got to the top, and like you said, it's beautiful. It's like you're in an airplane above the clouds, but then you look down and you see that, and you're like, oh man,
I gotta go back down.
I know.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like one of those horror films, It's a bad situation. So we're going to do everything we can, to promote this. But the other thing is, so what if someone can't make it, or they don't hike, run, anything else? How can they get involved? Is there a place where they can donate to the cause?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, go to runningupforair.com, and we have a simplified little PDF on there that's kind of like the 101 educational brochure on air quality.
Okay.
That's like a good first stop if you don't really know a whole lot about the situation. Then I'd recommend jumping over to the breatheutah.org website.
Right.
I mean, it's a very well done website with tons of information and opportunities to get involved at lots of different levels. If you're an educator and want to play in that role, great. If you're interested in sort of the legislative aspect of things, great. You can definitely donate. As we get closer to Running Up for Air, though, I'm sure they'll have something right on the main webpage where people can go. Like I want that donation to go directly to them and not through me or the race at all. Really, the race is just sort of the vehicle to bring attention to it.
Right.
So I think you do that. You see a lot of people that may not be able to participate, whether for one reason or another, but they want to be a part of it, or they want to promote it, or whatever your verbiage might be. So I think that's what people need to be aware of. Is you can go to runningupforair.com and check, as Jared just said, there's information there.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people that still are not aware of how bad it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Because some people don't watch the news. They really don't. Some people aren't familiar with it's a red day. What does that mean?
Right.
It means, it's bad weather
I
or
think
bad
that
air.
they don't understand how bad it is because they don't do that where they get up above the inversion.
Yeah.
Or they don't put the effort in to go from the inversion to non-inversion and see that. I think that's why it's important for people to get outside and participate in the natural environment so that they have a greater stake in the game. They actually understand what's happening to not only the environment, but to them physiologically.
Yeah.
To breathing this stuff 24/7 during a red cycle. And the red cycles are coming sooner and they're staying longer.
Well, so I've got a father-in-law who he cannot go outside on a red day. And so I've got children. So his grandchildren, he has not been able to attend events they've been a part of because he can't go outside.
Yeah.
And when he
You
does,
can feel the red days.
he can.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing he'll
absolutely.
ask. Because we'll say, hey, my daughter's got a soccer game. He goes, we'll have to check the air quality first. Is it yellow? If it's yellow, he'll put a mask on. He'll be on the sideline. But if it's red, he can't even be a part of my children's lives.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a serious thing.
I mean, you're spot on, Joel. And that's why I think the event is neat, is you appreciate how bad the problem is when you actually go up and have a perspective down on it.
But physically, you're doing it, not driving, not like driving up little cottonwood or big cottonwood, but you actually got some skin in the game, right?
Yeah. And that's why I'd love to get the visceral kind of video feed from the summit, so that not just the runners get to see what that's like. Everybody, like the 2 million people in the Salt Lake Valley could get exposure to it. I mean, that's what I see as like the best case outcome of this is people on their TV going, oh, wow, holy cow, like I get this.
Well, and if anybody out there has those conduits to these levels we're talking about. I mean, you can go on the website on the contact page and let them know, hey, we have this vehicle that we might be able to help with, whether somebody in the media.
We
right?
need Jamil Curry to come up and make a video.
Oh, yeah. Bring his little camera.
Bring his little camera.
I'll get him up here, actually.
There you go.
He's a Barkley guy. He's training
really
for it. He needs to come up here.
He's really good at making videos.
Oh,
he can't get this kind of vertical down in Phoenix.
And he loves it.
Get up here.
Yeah, because he just got done chasing Zach Miller and Hayden Hawks around North Face. So let's get him chasing up and down the peak with his camera. That'd be awesome.
That would be fun.
Yeah, just a little more coverage. So, I mean, is there anything else we could talk about with this, or anything we've left out that we could help with, or people can help with, or be aware of?
Maybe the one thing I wanted to throw out in terms of people participating is just that for those who want to run the event, I've mentioned that there's 3 different categories, but we've tried to make it really flexible on the start times for the 12 and 6 hour, which might sound weird. Most races don't do this, but for the 24 hour, obviously you got to start at 6 a.m.
Right.
If you are going to do the 6 hour event, we're letting you start essentially anywhere in that window.
That's cool.
So you could come start at midnight, 12 a.m. on Sunday, and then run from then till 6 a.m. on Sunday, and your time will still be kind of counted.
So anywhere within that 24-hour period.
Yeah, so it's going to kind of throw this cool element of, like, I don't exactly know who I'm, running against and all that.
Know.
But at the same
really
time, I hope, I have a family and kids, so I know what it's like having a complicated schedule.
Right.
And I think it would be really cool with a race that has a variable start time.
Yeah.
So we're allowing people to start.
Then, right?
Start on the hour, every hour. So they'll have to sort of check in and say, okay, I'm going to start at 10 a.m. on Saturday or whatever. So
you're going to have some tracking. This would be kind of neat. So people can follow along.
Yeah, we haven't exactly worked that out yet, but we'll plan it. We'll do something so folks can follow along. We had no time last year to coordinate.
Sure.
Much communication or anybody's ability to follow the race, but we'll do something this year. So we'll announce that on the website.
Cool, and you can get Brian Powell come over and be like,
live tweet it.
Yeah, live tweet. He can just sit down there and eat pierogies and say, okay, Luke Nelson's done 5 laps, folks.
So and to be clear on the start times, because I already know what's going through Joel's head. Joel, you can't go 3 hours, take a 2-hour nap, eat some pierogies, and finish your next 3. It's got to be
that's
6
a good idea.
hours straight.
You can if you want, but you're on the clock.
You're on the clock.
When you're eating pierogies. Actually, we had a woman this year come and do a few laps in the morning, and then she went skiing for the day, and then she came back later that evening.
That's awesome.
She shows up at like 8 or 9 p.m., and I'm like, hey, you're back. And she's like, yeah, I wouldn't miss out,
That's awesome.
I thought that was really cool.
That's
a
awesome.
good idea.
So it's going to start at 6 a.m. on February 11th, that Saturday.
Yep.
And it ends
6 a.m. on
6 a.m.
Sunday.
on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, man, that would be a lot of fun. It'd be fun to come down and just see it at night, even just seeing the headlamps and the up and down at the night during the evening, and kind of get people going. So, you last year you didn't do it, right? Or
I did do it.
Right?
Run the race, you mean?
Yeah.
I did this year, yeah.
It's like a hybrid between doing it and race directing.
Yeah, I mean, I was mostly
on course,
the event.
marking the course, make sure I got off course.
We were marking it on the first lap. Not that it's that hard to mark. But yeah, I don't exactly know. I might be just kind of making it happen and, helping out on top of it and helping with the timing and whatnot.
Right on.
Because we're trying to step up our game and make it look and be, act more like a real organized event. I'll probably be on the sidelines, being an RD.
Right.
Have you talked to? Is anybody that that's coming down that you've talked to? Like you've talked to certain people, and I know people are aware of it. Have you heard of people that are saying, we're
it's
coming
pretty
down?
early. I was with Buzz Burrell this morning.
Okay.
He's a good buddy of mine who was in town, and he's going to try to put the word out there to the other UD athletes and try to get some
That'd be fun.
Some high end folks to come out and now that we've put these targets out here.
That's right. And trust me, they're out there.
They are.
Right? That's pretty stout.
Yeah.
Like my anniversary is the 12th. So it's possible, right, for the 11th to come down. I think so. It's a Saturday.
Fine.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Do
'Cause I'd like to come down.
Be all right.
6 12 and 24 probably not for me right now. But 6
Ooh, you can do the 12? Come on.
I could do 3 laps in 12 hours easy. No, I think it'd just be fun to come down and be a part of it, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Not just the running part, but being actually a part of it.
Yeah.
Because again, it's for a great cause, and we have skin in the game, obviously.
Yeah, we do.
And we're going to do everything we can to promote the heck out of this thing.
I know. We'll fill it up.
Yeah, 120.
Sure. 120.
You know,
We
I'd
can do
love to
that.
see some like our local kind of skimo community get out here too. You know, there's the trail running community, there's the skimo community.
Right.
It for whatever reason they haven't been drawn to the 24-hour event, and I'd love to see some people come and just crush, especially the 6-hour event. You know, we have some amazing talent here.
Yeah.
In
Get the
terms
Dorius
of,
brothers to come over.
I'd love to have them come out here. I mean, I think that could be the most interesting event here is the 6-hour.
Oh, yeah.
Really.
Just seeing guys just go for it.
Just crushing each
Because
other.
there's guys and gals out there that could do really well at this. And we have that.
Who's that gal in Jackson? That skimo gal. She's the last Sportiva.
Meredith?
Yeah, Meredith. What's her last name?
I can't think off the top
She's
of my head.
fast.
Yeah, and she does well.
She won the TDS over at France. Meredith
three.
June?
I can't remember off the top of my head. We're gonna
She's the last Sportiva athlete. We need to get her to come down.
Yeah, we need to get some. I think that'd be great to see some of them come down and just on the men's and women's side, just see what can be put out there.
I know.
I'd love to see just lay it on the line for an early season fun, because people have that in that side of them that's that competitiveness. Like
Especially
you said, it's
for
a
6
race.
hours.
Yeah, 6 hours for sure.
That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, 24-hour would be fun to watch.
Well, just think about the quad destruction in 24 hours.
It's good training.
I mean, even if you got 20,000 feet of climbing in 24 hours, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's going to hurt.
In February.
In February.
Yeah.
Oh.
Without that mix in of running. Because people think,
That's
okay.
coming up fast, too.
Yeah.
That's only 2 months away.
Joel's already training.
I started just doing the math right there. I was like, wait a minute. I just said I kind of want to do the 24-hour. I got 2 months. Oh, no.
You can't say it on air either.
Yeah, I can't.
We're gonna have all the information on our website. We're gonna have the links. We're gonna have as much information as we can. But again,
let's sell this out, folks.
runningupforair.com. Check it out on their website, like we just mentioned. Go over to Ultra Sign Up. If anything else, if you have time, just go ahead and, like Jared mentioned, read the PDFs. Read about this stuff, right? Share it with your friends.
Why it's important that you come.
Yeah, it's not a race. I mean, it is, but there's a reason, as Jared mentioned, there's a reason this came about, and there's a reason why it's lasted, and there's a reason why he's gone to bat and worked so hard with the Forest Service to make this happen. I think that's important, right? You've worked with the Forest Service to really make this an event that you can be proud of, happy of, and people can really gravitate towards.
Right.
So yeah, we'll definitely promote it. I think Joel might be signing up for the 24-hour. Which is good. He's thinking about it right now.
I am. It's unfortunate.
Excellent.
But yeah, we'll definitely visit with you again on this.
I think so. Right, maybe right before we'll
at
least come back down to Salt Lake, see how the numbers are doing.
Yeah. So if
maybe
you're out
even
there,
go and do a lap on Church Fork. I think that would be important. I'd like to know what I'm getting into.
I think that's important. But you need to figure that out for sure.
I'd like to go do that first.
So yeah, Jared, thanks for taking the time to join us. Like I said, I know you're busy, your schedule, but we definitely wanted to get down so we can do what we can to help with the event in some level, some capacity. Because like Joel mentioned, we'd love to see this thing get 120 people.
Oh, I think we can do it.
We'd love to see some media there. We'd love to see it, televised at some level.
That'd be so cool.
So the public, like you mentioned, can be aware of what's really happening. And we have just enough crazy community here with enough connections that I don't know why that couldn't happen.
I know.
Right?
Absolutely.
So if you can help on any level that way, definitely do so. Right? So, Jared, thanks for joining us. We absolutely would love to get, because I know a lot of people are going to see this and say, oh, yeah, Jared, we can talk about Barkley, but we're not. No, we're going to tease everybody with this.
That wasn't why we were here.
Yeah, we want to make sure everybody's aware of RUFA, but we'd love to get back with you and talk about some of these other things, obviously with your history, because it's fascinating for us to hear.
It is.
And especially when you've been doing it before it became a thing, right?
Before it became cool.
Yeah, before it became cool, and now you're the mentor.
He is.
Yep. And so it's just awesome to be sitting at the table with you. So thanks for joining us. We're going to do everything we can to promote this, and if you have any questions, you can head over to their website, runningupforair.com. Check them out on Ultra Sign Up. Support the event, folks, on any way you can, and Breathe Utah, right, is the other one they can check out for some more information. So thanks for joining us. Let's get this thing to 120 people.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All righty. Thank you for listening to the TrailManners podcast. We'd like to thank Jared Campbell for taking the time to join us today. And you can check more about Jared's event out at RUFA or runningupforair.com, or go over to Ultra Sign Up and put it in search engine there. You can also head on over to breatheutah.org to read a little bit more about that and support the cause. We'd also like to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TrailManners, or swing by the website at trailmanners.com. Swing by the store page for some gear, or hit us up on the contact page and let us know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or even if you would like to be on the show. Until next time, this is Eric Manning with Joel Hatch reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.